Hey guys, it's your host, Bryce. If you're at all interested in reading, I hope you'll try my new book, Airplane Graveyard, my first small collection of poetry. Airplane Graveyard retraces the path that brought us here and questions the way forward. These poems work through the redefining of masculinity in our living era. What can we keep? What should we change? How can we be sure? These questions are framed in the death of the family dog, getting married, wanting children, and in many memories of the speaker's family, particularly his Vietnam War veteran father. Airplane Graveyard is available for pre-order now at finishinglinepress.com. If you place an order before July 19th, you'll get $2 off the typical list price. I know poetry isn't everybody's thing, but I personally feel mine isn't dense or prompting you to bash your head off the wall, but rather simple to understand. I hope you'll give it a try. If you decide to place an order, be sure to email proof of your pre-order to arcadebookshop@gmail.com, and I'll send you 5 Arcade Bookshop stickers for free. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. You have entered the Arcade Cafe. I'm your host, Bryce, and it's just me today because Caleb is just withered from driving in a beer truck without AC in this shitty Pennsylvania humid-ass heat. But anyway, quick reminder, if you haven't already, check out our 2 most recent main episodes of Arcade Bookshop. We talked about On Writing by Stephen King, and then a cool little indie game called Return of the Obra Dinn, and they were both really fun conversations, so hope you check those out, and I hope you like them. Today, since Caleb couldn't make it, I'm going to go ahead and skip the intro and just transition into the show with another clip from one of the many cool people I spoke with at the Three Rivers Comicon. Here is what Jose had to say.
First of all, what's your name?
Jose.
All right, Jose. What's your favorite story in a video game and why?
It has to be the Assassin's Creed, the one with Ezio in Italy.
Oh, yeah.
It really went in deep history regarding where his bloodline was coming from, and his family, his mother and his sister, and how it all began from there and expanded into the new Assassin's Creeds that we have, and how they all go back somewhat to that history bloodline and still tying it into the new ones.
Yeah.
Even like as far as like Valhalla and stuff like that. So that's one of my favorite stories from the Assassin's Creed.
Do you think it's important to tell stories?
Yes. Yeah, it's very important because if you're playing a game and there's no story, it becomes boring. So if there's a game and a purpose and making you actually think about what's going to happen next, and almost like making you like a investigator, you want to think about ahead of like what could happen, and then be surprised because something different happened. So understanding the main story of where the main character is coming from and why he was created and where it's going to go from there.
Does it make you think about yourself at all when you're playing?
Yes, actually. There's a lot of events that happened in my childhood, even in my teenager years, where like Ezio was running around stealing food and stealing stuff from people just to be able to survive. It reminded me of some of the times where I had to do stuff like that in order to survive because I was in a hardship area, So, yeah, there's a lot of times where I sit there in game going, all right, this reminds me of some stuff I did before.
So you'd say video games were pretty important in that way?
Yes. Yeah, especially the ones that have the deep storylines.
Yes.
That makes you think. It makes you say, okay, what's going on? Why do we have to do this next mission, for this?
Yeah.
So it's crucial to have a story.
First of all, thanks Jose for stopping by the Arcade Bookshop table. I hope you've been able to check out the show and take something unique or personal from it, or at the very least, I hope you enjoyed some of our dumb, crude jokes. I loved what Jose had to say about seeing himself in video game characters. At times that the storytelling gets real and honest and raw, like stealing from people when you know it's wrong, but you're still a human and you have to survive. And I think that goes for any story or poem or comic book you might find yourself really enjoying. Stories are important because they're external pieces of art that help reflect ourselves back at us. And if we play or read through the eyes of a character we really relate to, those are the winners that feel like us and make us remember that each of us as individuals, are part of the world, whatever it is. It reminds me of something a literature professor once taught my class about the definition of culture. He drilled it into us that culture is the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. And nothing in the world seems more important to me than to find those stories that echo who we are and where we've been as individuals and as a descendant of a bloodline. So thank you again, Jose, for your contribution. For everyone else who recorded moments with me at the Three Rivers Comicon, keep a lookout the next few weeks. I'm going to post another episode with all of you put together. Moving on, I don't have any video game news today. I feel like I got pretty exhausted the last few weeks with all the showcases, and I personally dove hard back into writing and reading the last couple of weeks. So, let's just consider today's Arcade Cafe talk an Arcade Bookshop diary entry. Back when we interviewed Jaime Alejandro, we discussed the idea of creative people nowadays being quote-unquote working-class creatives, and I think more and more of us are really feeling that lately. I work a full-time desk job, I work at a cafe 2 to 3 days a week, and I write, read, play games, and make a podcast whenever I can squeeze each of those things into my busy-ass schedule. And nobody is immune to this. Caleb recently advised that he's finding himself in a similar situation as I am in, and will no longer have adequate free time to be reading and playing games for Arcade Bookshop. While this is disappointing to hear, especially after we just announced Season 2 2 weeks ago, I have to say I haven't been serving myself creatively as rich a meal as I'd prefer, so I'm actually very eager to get back into the depths of my writing and enjoying reading, and yes, I'll still be playing video games in the spaces in between. Having said this, it does mean that Arcade Bookshop is winding down, but you should look out for a final couple of episodes later this summer. They're going to be like serious bangers, and I wouldn't go out any other way. And while today's episode of Arcade Cafe is in fact the last for now, I want to say that I do love the idea of this show. As imperfect and goofy and sometimes lazy as we are, I believe in it, and it's not off the table to make a comeback whenever we find life normalizing once again. I feel like I've had a few different theses, whatever. I didn't say feces, I said theses, TH. Since we've started this show, like about what it really is meant to be, about like what our goals are, what our communities are, etc. I do want to bring the two communities together. I wanted to bring together the people who only play video games and the people who only read books, and bring them together in one place where we can discuss both the positive things for each of them, and how they both serve a similar purpose. And something else I've talked about repeatedly was how a lot of people say that video games are a waste of time, and philosophically, you shouldn't be wasting your time with something as childish and silly as a video game. I still don't believe that's completely true. However, it depends who you are, and also it depends how you feel when you're playing the game. Maybe it is a waste of time if you find yourself playing the game and feeling like you're wasting your time, then you know that you could be doing something better. But at the end of the day, they exist for a reason. And for me, I don't think anything should be off the table. I don't think there should be anything in life that you say, I'm never doing that ever again, unless it's like hard drugs. Sometimes things like video games fill in the gaps, and I'll call back to what my professor, Jeff Ficola, who we interviewed earlier this year, once said. People used to say that movies would never be as quality as books, and now look where we are. All that rambling aside, I just want to be clear that this is something that we just have to do for now to make our lives possible and doable. So, Arcade Bookshop will be closing down shop, but as I said already, I don't plan on this being a forever thing. So, one more thing before I go. I don't like idle hands. I'm already thinking about what my next podcast is going to be about. Follow the Arcade Bookshop Instagram at arcade_bookshop, where I will be posting sometime in the future about the next project up my sleeve. Thank you all for listening to Arcade Bookshop this past year, especially if you're a regular listener. It means so much to anyone who creates anything when others consume the art you pour your energy into and find true appreciation for it. You have spent some time in the Arcade Cafe, and despite this gloomy news, I hope you enjoyed yourself. I have been your host, Bryce Yoli. Until we meet again.